On this episode of the show, I have with me Hassaan Raza. He is co-founder and CEO at Tavus. We're going to be talking actually about friction and technology and a little bit about work-life balance. And obviously, if you're fortunate to actually pursue something you like, does that really help balance your work-life equation? And is it really part of the outlet that you're looking for? And we'll talk to Hassaan about that. And also a little bit about how technology is removing some of the friction and making things easier. And does that help us actually get to that work-life balance a little bit more? Hassaan, thanks for taking the time.
Thanks for having me. Excited to chat.
Awesome. Before we start, can you tell everyone what the company does?
Yeah. So Tavus, we're a research lab focused on human computing, and what that means is we're chasing the pursuit of teaching machines how to be human, teaching machines how to see, hear, respond, even look like humans do. And we think this is important because if we can teach machines how to be human, then we can unlock this the future we've been dreaming about, and we can remove the barriers that exist in who can use technology well and who can't. And we're really excited about that.
So I guess let's dive into this episode, which is really around, again, you mentioned friction. And obviously, you guys are working on some of the technology to help us with that in our daily lives. And the conversation kind of steered to work-life balance. And, I think something that we hear a lot, even, on social media is, find what you love to do and do that. It doesn't feel like you've worked a day in your life type of thing. Easier said, harder done. When we look at that work-life balance and we're thinking about how to optimize for it, a lot of people say, find what you're passionate about. And I think that's tricky because a lot of people then go, I might not be able to make money doing what I'm passionate about. When you think about work-life balance and finding the thing that makes you happy, let's just start there.
Yeah. I think that this is a very privileged place to be able to do the thing that you love and have maybe the financial outcomes or the security that you need, in order to continue doing those things. This is first off a very privileged thing. But I think that maybe there's a piece of it, which is that, it doesn't always I think part of it is finding work that you feel fulfills your curiosity to some degree. And maybe it's not in the exact sort of, field that you might be super passionate about, but still is able to fulfill your curiosity, and is able to, unleash your passion. I think that's really where I think we feel most privileged is, I think at Tavus, the work that we do, I think everyone on the team would agree that they're both doing and solving the problems that they dream to solve. And so they're getting to do the work they want to do, and it's satisfying their curiosity and their passion. I think that's a very unique thing, and a very privileged place to be in.
And I guess and again, I think it's sometimes when we think about this topic, people want to make a dotted line to the actual activity. And sometimes I think it's the spirit of that activity that needs to be understood so you can find where else that kind of surfaces. I guess when you think about engineering, is it the actual, for you, is it the actual, the lines of code, the actual output that you put together, or is it the spirit of that kind of drives you forward?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think there's levels to the maybe being able to reach the fulfillment you're looking for, right? I think that, and it honestly depends per person, because for some people, what they really want to do and what they're really interested in is solving problems, and they love puzzles and they love solving really, really difficult problems. And and a lot of engineers, they be like this, where they're actually, maybe the outcome of the problem matters less to them, and how does this affect the end thing. But what matters a lot to them is I solved this really hard puzzle, this technical piece, and that gave them fulfillment. I think there's another level of it, which is you're both interested in solving the puzzle, but you're also interested in the outcome of the puzzle and what the puzzle actually ends up affecting, if that means. And I think that like for us, for like me at Tavus, like when we're saying we're solving the human computing problem, it's one that like we're incredibly passionate about solving, because we see it as like, for a lot of us, this was like the dream. Like what we're solving is like the sci-fi we read when we were younger, like, the shows we watched, the movies we watched, all the science fiction coming to life. And we're getting to actually solve the problems that would unlock that. And for a lot of us, we're also interested in the puzzles themselves that are there to solve. And it seems like there's like degrees to that. And maybe that relates to like, and I think this is a further conversation, which is like, I think it relates to then work-life balance and how much time you can spend doing those things. But yeah, I think there's degrees to it. Is like some people are just like, hey, I don't care maybe what the end state is. I just care about solving the problems, and I love these puzzles. But some people, it's like, I both care about the puzzles and what the puzzle is and solving it. And some people are content with some, and some people need more.
Interesting. And I guess the reason, going down this path is, the notion that if you actually do find what you really like doing, then maybe when you go to work, it feels less like work, an extension of curiosity, versus a lot of people can't wait to get to Friday, right? They're excited to get to Friday because they just rather the weekend come sooner and not be at work and enjoy their lives. Okay, then just one caveat. I think for most people, given a choice to have an opportunity to not work at all and have the means, okay, a lot of people might choose that, right? No one likes to, maybe the challenge for some, but hey, we all like vacations for that reason. But, talking in a realistic world, well, we do know we need to work. When you do work and you do enjoy your work, is that part of the solution of looking for work-life balance, and instead of looking for the reverse of, the working to live, living to work conversation?
Yeah. I mean, I think that potentially, like, my take, and maybe I'll have this team's take on this, is a little bit more controversial on this. But I also think it's perspective, and a different way to look at it, which is to say that one maybe to respond to your earlier point, like, hey, like a lot of people given the choice would just not work. I think that as we see with a lot of people who retire, like often at some point they're like, I need to do something. I need to like solve some problem. Like I'm craving this dopamine hit, the satisfaction of building something, or the satisfaction of, solving the puzzle. And I think that's true for a lot of people, where, they're just not capable of just sitting still and being on the beach the entire time. Like there has to be some level of like, fulfillment and success in doing something. So that's one piece of it. I think the other side though is like, yes, I think that like, there's this element of like, let's take engineering as an example. I think like as a software engineer, you could both be getting a piece of what you want, which is the dopamine hit of solving puzzles and problems at your 9 to 5, but then you may still not be passionate enough about it. And therefore, like you have like side projects and you have like hobby projects. And so for some people, outside of engineering maybe, and is like maybe like they feel like they really need to have a hobby that isn't related to their work, or maybe they don't enjoy their work enough to make it their hobby. And certainly at Tavus, like all of us have like different types of hobbies. And I actually encourage this as well. Certainly you can see there's a 85, vet in the background, a big car guy. Like there's all sorts of things in this office that are like part of our hobbies. But that's to say that I think if you do work that you're really, really passionate about, and you care about the problem space and you care about the puzzles, then the need for a hobby or a need for work-life balance sort of turns down a little bit, in the sense that like a hobby is often an outlet to someone's creativity, into their spirit, into their passion. And if you find work that you really, really love and you're passionate about the problem, then that can be your outlet. And you don't actually mind maybe the later days and the weekends and those, because that is your outlet. And you don't need side projects as much because that is your outlet. Now, there's a whole other thing about why, like, I do have a whole thing around, I think it's really important to have alternative hobbies, even if you don't get to spend that much time with them. Certainly, I don't get to spend that much time with my other ones. But I think overall, the necessity to have something big to do outside of work or have this like balance goes away if you're able to do something that you're really passionate about, because that is your outlet.
And I think that's really interesting because I feel like, we hear a lot of, and again, I think that if you are fortunate to do something you do enjoy that much, so when you go to work, you are not counting down the time, right? I think, unfortunately, that's not always the case. I do think, interestingly, we do live in a day and age where it might be the highest point of opportunity for someone to take a hobby and do something with it. I mean, I think now with the ability to be your own content machine, your own IP engine, I think anyone can actually find that channel. It takes work again. I mean, you're not gonna, even that's hard, I think, to be successful at those things, aside from, being good at engineering. If you want to do well in those spaces where you take advantage of non-traditional skills, that's challenging as well. I guess when we look at, and segue, that's because technology is actually removing the friction for some of these things, right? So the advent of the cell phone meant we carry a little mini computer with a screen with us, and it's allowed us to make videos and content that people have monetized. There's other places where we're seeing that, the removal of technology as a friction, as a barrier. When we think about just general quality of life and we think about technology helping us, lowering that friction, talk to us a little bit. I mean, and you guys are doing something interesting. Obviously, you want to have machines be more human-like. Where does that fit into the picture of technology and friction?
Yeah, I think this there's this concept of like friction that we're really obsessed with it at Tavus. And interestingly enough, to actually tie this back to like hobbies or outside of work, is like one of the reasons that I push the team to sometimes just like go and do other things, and like why the office is full of like vintage computers and cars and all sorts of like different things, is that I actually think that there's so much to learn by taking your mind off the code for a second, taking your mind and just going and doing something else, and going and using something else, and like feeling these pieces and feeling like, okay, what felt good about this thing? What felt kind of rough about this thing? And there's like so much learning of that you can have in these like alternative spheres. And often you can discover a solution in a very different way. And so that's why I find that really important. But we are obsessed with this concept of friction, and how like essentially machines don't really understand humans today. And this creates an imbalance and inequality of who can use it well and who can't. Certainly like me, who's been, coding since they're very young, versus like my mom, who is incredibly intelligent, but doesn't know how to code necessarily, the ability, or doesn't even know how to use a machine as well as I do. There's a difference in our ability to execute and realize our ideas. And I think this is something we care deeply about. And like, who can use software well and who can't, and who can Google search well and who can't, and who can use LLMs well and who can't. There's an imbalance there. And that imbalance exists because there's a learning curve to machines and software. And we're obsessed with removing that, because if we deliver a future where machines understand us deeply and are to some degree humans, then the interface to use machines is non-existent. It's just talking to a friend. And just like you can talk to your best friend or your parents or your partner, and they sort of get you, and they can really like, they can execute on what you might want even before you're thinking about it. Like, we think that machines can do that as well. And they can be a creative outlet where anyone can utilize them to their great potential. And that's something we really care about. It's like democratizing access to all this tooling and this AI. And it is rooted in solving friction.
Let me ask you this question, and not a part of the original agenda, but I am curious. So what you guys are doing with the goal obviously reduces friction, which we could argue, if we're talking about work-life balance, we'll have more of our time back, right? I think over time, I bring this up with cybersecurity leaders all the time, that Hollywood has portrayed a vision of cybersecurity and hacking that people have. It's a stereotype that a bunch of people are clickety clacking on keys and finding passwords magically and cracked it, and they're in. And they're like, it doesn't work that way at all. But that's what Hollywood is portrayed. When we think about AI, we think about robotics, we think about machines. We have Hollywood helping us again with, I mean, even going back, 30, 40, 50 years, the vision of what they could do. We have, a couple of movies that have portrayed robots and AI as nefarious. We had the Jetsons where Rosie, was not, and we've had other, TV shows and movies that portrayed him the other light. But I do feel like that stereotype is very much entrenched of what could happen. And hey, we're all going to lose our jobs. I'm going to sit at home. I have no money, and they'll take over the world. Doomsday scenario. You're trying to help reduce the friction of using these machines to help people's lives. Being in that position, if someone's listening to this, because I know I'm going to get messages that going, oh, here we go again, somebody who's trying to take my job and, take over the world. What's your answer to that? Because it sounds like you really believe in work-life balance. I mean, you bring it into the company culture. I can hear it in your voice. What do you say to the people that are worried that the machines do take over?
I think there's a few things, right? And I'm not going to sit here and say that it won't happen. Certainly our aim is not that, but certainly other companies' aims are that. And so there will be some degree of replacement that happens, and and I think that that's going to suck one way or another. And there's going to be a transition point. But I think that on the other hand, there's a few things that are going to happen. One is from our perspective, we're not actually our job isn't to replace humans. It's actually to just replace bad machines. And the idea is if we can equalize who can use every type of software, every type of machine, then that just up levels everyone's ability to create, whether it's businesses, whether it's art, whether it's X, Y, or Z. And we hope that actually improves outcomes for a lot of people, where people who otherwise wouldn't have been able to do job A, job B can, because the interface for them to learn it and to execute on that is just talking to another human, essentially. So that's really where I think that for us, it's it's an empowerment thing. How can we make machines better partners for humans to be able to do their best work? And that's our focus is how can we do that? I think there are other companies that are focused on replacement, and that some degree may happen. I also think that that the necessity for humans is going to be stronger than ever. And maybe the job roles will shift a little bit, but I think they'll be stronger than ever.
I like that. And I do think humans are also horrible prognosticators of the future.
Yes.
I feel like the more I hear people say the same thing in agreement that X is going to happen, the more I go, the likelihood of all these people predicting the future is probably less correct. And we can probably go back through history and find tons of examples where the bell curve doesn't hold for future predictions. It's an extreme fringe idea that someone had that comes true. So I agree with you. I think that we will see a different future, but also one where work-life balance is at the center, and maybe agents work on our behalf and make our day, instead of a 40-hour work week, a 20-hour work week, but we get paid maybe the same. Who knows? I don't know. I mean, maybe that's outlandish too, but that could be a world where I work less, make the same money, because it's all equalized at that point. I mean, people are going to rip me for that one, but whatever.
I think that's true. And I think that naturally with new technology, we like to focus on the negatives, but I do think that in general, the ability for our lives to be better, just and mostly honestly, I guess even the US in general, the very privileged place, for emerging economies, all these, for those lives to be elevated through these new technologies coming out, is just ability, like the possibility of that is great, right? Like certainly if everyone can use a computer the same way, they can learn at the same level. I think that just like the quality of life goes up for everyone. And we're seeing this already in like healthcare settings. Like I think there's gonna be so many amazing advancements that will sort of like just get like not really talked about because, you know, who likes to talk about the positives that will just like improve our daily lives. And so there will be some negatives with every, like as is with every technology. But in general, I think people will be more productive, have more time and ability to do what they love. And honestly, I see it as like a great equalizer more than anything.
You know, I agree. I think it actually democratizes things that have held parts of society back. You know, you don't. Yes, going to an elite school might be important in the future, but also if information is more readily available, maybe that's not as valued as it is in the last 50 years.
100%.
And I think sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, bro. And I really like that point you mentioned. Is like part of the thing of going to elite schools and all these things is like it rewarded certain types of people that learn certain types of ways. But the amazing thing about these new paradigms of interaction is that you don't have to learn the same way that your friend does or the teacher wants to teach you. Now, like you can come in and ask the question a billion different ways and it will sit there patiently and explain it to you in the way that works best. So now people with non-traditional or, you know, ways of learning and thinking can actually have the same opportunity. And so, yeah, you're right. Where like the elite school thing was all about, oh, you have a certain type of people that can learn a certain type of way and they think a certain type of way that is fit for this. It's like, no, now you can have completely different types of students that learn more visually or just need a little more time or need to explain a different way can learn the same things. I think that is like going to be a really beautiful thing.
Yeah, I actually, yeah, that's where I think things are going to go. We're gonna see skills. And you know what? We could probably go back in history and find instances of this, of, you know, education shifting, because we didn't all need to be farmers, you know, hunters 500 years ago. Skills have changed. Everyone does come back to me and does indicate that this is wider. It touches everything. It makes a bigger impact, and I get that. But I also counter, there was some time in the last 20 years, whatever your age is, that you are not willing to do a couple things. One, buy even a book online, get in some stranger's car, or go rent a house from somebody that was unknown and not a major hotel chain when you went on vacation. But yet, or have food delivered, not worrying that somebody's going to tamper your groceries on the way home. All four of those things happen as part of most people's lives now. And I go, I will get countered that I'm again not seeing things wide enough, and I know that. But I do think removing friction from what we're talking about, I think everything you've told me makes me realize that we're actually in the position of democratizing a lot of what previously was a challenge. And I think maybe that's really the takeaway.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that especially over the last 30 years, you know, certainly I think there is a group of people who have benefited greatly from the advancements of the last 30, 40, 50 years. And there's an opportunity for that to be democratized and equalized across, you know, the rest of the world.
I love it, man. I appreciate your time. I know we covered a lot of different terrain in this 30-minute juggernaut. We covered a lot. I think we covered everything we wanted to, a little bit more as well. If somebody does have a question, a follow-up, rather, is there a good way of connecting with you?
Yeah, I mean, certainly, like LinkedIn is great. Find me on X or Twitter, and you can also email me. And my email is on my website, it's on my LinkedIn, so just feel free to email me as well. It's Hassaan@tavus.io.
All right, awesome. Definitely appreciate your time. Thank you for that. And that's it for this episode. We'll be back again, different guest, different topic. Until then, two things. One, conversation with Hassaan was fantastic. I mean, we talked about really removing friction and improving work-life balance. We talked about it in the context of your day-to-day job, and then what's potentially LLMs, AI, these type of solutions. We will bucket robotics in there as well, because we kind of talked across a lot of different things, how they actually help reduce the friction. He's actually working on that problem, which is really cool. And he's also very centered in his work-life balance view of his team himself, and he actually spoke quite clearly about that. So share this episode with somebody who might be of interest in hearing about it, and I think it was fantastic. If you do that, I would appreciate it. Also, like, subscribe, comment. Let me know how the show is going for you. Until next time, thank you and goodbye.